Good morning, everyone. So I am from Lloyds Banking Group. I'll be having a presentation about our journey of using open source. My name is Renzo Cherin, and I am a head of software engineering in Lloyds. Oh yeah, I have a clicker, by the way. This would be the one. Yes. So let me give you just a quick overview of Lloyds Banking Group. It is actually the biggest institution in Britain. It is oldest as well. We have 330 years history. We have something about 29 million of customers, of which a good part of them are actually digitally active. We have 16 brands, so we are quite a big group, and 65k employees. So just to give you a taste that we are kind of representative of financial industry, if you like, at least in Britain. So, well, how it was. So that was interesting. So you may remember when you were going to the branch and you had some weird monitors and terminals available. So it was all, once upon a time, was all controlled basically by few big tech vendors which were offering services to banking. And we had a very long time to onboard those vendors because it was lots of about size of the vendor. There's lots of requirements we have to make for vendors to be part of our providers. So it was as well very, we were also sending our engineers to kind of inspect how the vendors are actually making software, producing software. It was all closed sourced, but we still needed to have some assurance how that's actually made and controlled. We, of course, had a quite complex legal and service level agreements and constructs, and was, again, upgrades, maintenance were very painful, not to mention that we were locked in, right? So once we are in, we are full with one vendor for a long time. Any thinking of migration means totally rewrite potentially of your application, which most of the time was not an option. Of course, we then rely on lots of specialized system integration companies. And then we had silos. We had the applications which were not actually talking to each other because they were proprietary. There was lots of problems how we can integrate them. And then we moved to today, right? We have now digital applications, digital channels, mobile apps. Everything on a mobile app is a mantra. We did embrace open source, which is good. We are in transition to start using as our standard commodity platforms and software like Kubernetes and containers, public cloud. We, of course, will always have a little bit of hybrid because back to sovereignty, we talked about all that. So we always like to have, well, not only like, we actually oblige because we are a regulated business. We do have to still prove that we have full control of certain aspects of our applications. So we are using Kubernetes nowadays for all new work, but you can imagine we have a big estate as well existing applications which not necessarily are playing well with Kubernetes. And we are also playing with AI. Well, we cannot go without mentioning AI. So we do play with AI. It's in a small kind of now, small non-important elements on the customer facing, but it's increasing. We are experimenting, testing, keep an eye, and once we feel we'll be mature, secure, we'll be then potentially having more embracing the technology. So. But what is advantage as well today, where by actually using now open source software most of the time, we can actually select more providers. There's more competition now, and it's much better for us. As well, if we do use open source foundations, we can easily import our applications from one vendor to another, which gives us lots of kind of good feelings, right? We don't have those lock-ins which we've seen in the past. And then again, what we tend today is to use some foundations like OpenShift, Kubernetes, and then we build verticals on top, which is, again, we standardize those kind of infrastructure elements which are common to all industry, I guess, and that gives us lots of flexibility, actually. And we can as well focus on what matters to our differentiation rather than actually reinventing the wheel. And indeed, I was mentioning here, open source enables deep inspections, which is great because once upon a time it was all closed and we didn't have actually good visibility what is there, and there was always a risk sense of afraid, can I actually bring it in? Is secure? So all that, remember, complex contracts and liability were all there. Nowadays, you can see yourself, yeah, you can validate what is shipped in your infrastructure is actually fulfilling your needs for security and compliancy, which is great, actually. In this, so we also started contributing. We are not massively yet present, but definitely that's something we are looking forward. And then it's important bit that we're also growing out lots of in-house engineering. Well, finally, the realization is depending to system integration third parties is not good long-term, and hence we do actually now have in-house most of our activities and most of our obligations are maintained internally, and also enables us to migrate potentially different vendors, which I mentioned. Future, tomorrow, well, AI definitely driven. There will be definitely agents around which will be interacting with our services, so not necessarily directly humans, but nevertheless, we'll still be having services somewhere running, right? So we see that we'll have open source platforms as commodity and the standard, and hopefully everything will be running on those commodity platforms. That's our direction. We would be cloud native wherever we can, so every of our applications will be running or being ready to run on cloud. And then also we see that there will be definitely a trend, that's a vision, who knows, but the small language models will play a role whereby we believe that specialized models will actually have its place in our state. Now, tomorrow we'll have again all those commodities, hardware, so we can easily swap potentially cloud providers, if you like, and that's the intention. So by standardizing, commoditizing, we will be having much more choice, and hence open market, potentially savings, and overall better resilience as well. Yeah, we do have as well some, by using our patents and well understood industry standards as well, enable us to be much more compliant, have security as well. We can have those deep inspections on open source. So I think it's quite lots of positives and wins as well, which is coming in the future. Again, reducing fragmentation. Again, so we were, in Lloyds, we actually recently announced a strategy about having more kind of streamlined and opinionated, if you like, set of software stacks we're using, which is heavily influenced by open source, and to help us to reduce fragmentation, enable more kind of inner sourcing and exchanging, and as well having interchangeable workforce as well, in the sense we can work, engineers could work on multiple parts of our industry without need to reinvent or learn new languages, programming languages in this case. And here on the last slide, I would like to go a little bit on reflections, right? So what will be the what we see as a benefits and what we see as a challenge as well by using open source, right? So definitely we have improved engineering happiness, if you like, using open source, because I remember hiring engineers which are coming to our bank, our brands, because in the previous organization they had all proprietary software, and they were not happy because they said it's not something I can sell in the future. It's not something I can use as well elsewhere. Hence, by using open source, which at that time we were kind of publishing, have this kind of attempt to publish more about our use of open source, indeed had much better actually engineering response, and we had much more interesting engineers to work for us. Again, I mentioned already, simplifying migrations, having standard layers and kind of Kubernetes, open telemetry, and so on, which are all your projects of Linux Foundation, are essential, if you like, for the future, because they're giving us a bedrock which we can then build our verticals on top. again, by utilizing open source, we will do innovation, promote innovation, sustainability technologies as well are there because they are much more transparent, we have much more choice, and we have as well much higher engineering community around them. And as well, reducing our dependencies to vendors is seen as very kind of positive because it's back to our sovereignty and ability to be masters of our destiny, if you like, right? However, it's not coming without challenges, right? So it is actually quite expensive to potentially have non-well-maintained open source projects. So we did have experiences with utilizing libraries, which necessarily are not having a great community around them, and hence they are kind of dying and returning to life, being life, and so all that means that you have to rewrite software when it's not anymore kind of having an application or library dependency in your supply chain, which is not secure or is not maintained. All that brings additional maintenance cost. Again, how to integrate with closed source. We do have still closed source, and we have as well SaaS offerings. How that kind of integration is not yet great, and indeed brings back to the same old story, right? So how we can make a contractual agreements with third parties or closed source or SaaS products with potentially our internal open source offering. Now, as you probably have seen, there's lots of malware, open source attacks happening on our depending supply chain. As that increases, and it is increasing, we have as well continually to increase our security of our supply chain. Hence, it's continuous kind of investment and a little bit race with malicious actors out there to kind of outperform themselves and be safe and secure. So how we can also show to our regulators that we are safe and secure. So that's back to our regulated industry. We have to have as well a track record of our security investment and posture. And, you know, it is a continuous investment and continuous race. And then, well, yes, having too much choice is not always a good thing, right? So in open source, we have really too much choice nowadays, which is good, right? That means we are successful in open source. But that on turns means that there is also some fragmentation in all that. So if our engineering community in our organization is free to choose whatever they like in order to make their application, is not going to fly. It will be a very hard thing to maintain. It will be a jungle. So we have to start having very opinionated approach on that, whereby we restrict or standardize certain libraries, dependencies, frameworks we will be using because it's just too much over there. And that doesn't make everyone happy, right? As you can imagine, engineers are usually as well very particular in a sense in their choices of I like that and because I like that. However, if it's not good for big corporate as ours, you cannot use it. And that makes him quite unhappy, right? And finally, well, ensuring as well our legal and and security compliance requires additional kind of creation of reports. But not only that, it is also how I can, because our regulators not necessarily are on the same pace of using of open source. So you will have some situations where a regulator will have old mindsets and bringing in kind of, oh, where is your, I know, firewall rules, right? Or elements of kind of purely network IPs. You have to have IPs very logged everywhere. So hold a moment, we are using maybe serverless, but it's not really something we can think about that. So evolution as well of our regulators is important in all that. So how I can show my compliance or how they actually they evolve the regulation is important, and that's sometimes a challenge. And with that, I'll stop here, and because that was my last slide, and we'll have a panel discussion. Thank you very much.